Once again, my freedom of speech has been disallowed by the criminal rich. My other camera stopped working, so I have to do the whole video on one camera. We'll see how it turns out. Hi, I'm Frank Scruggs, and I found something on the internet that scared the hell out of me. My daughter, Becky, was planning to move to Florida, and I had done some climate change studies in the past, and I was wondering whether it was a good idea for her to buy land in Florida, how stable the ice was, and whether Florida would flood out in the near future. So I pulled up a graph. First of all, we all know about this graph. This is the climate change. I mean, the CO2 versus in parts per million that we've added over the years. We can see that since the 60s, we've added 80 parts per million. But that's not what scared me. I already knew that. What scared me was this graph. If I can do it correctly, I will upload this graph and you'll get a direct picture of it. But in this graph, the parts per million methane concentration on the top changed by 100 ppm, and the sea level change on the bottom changed by 400 feet. That's 4 feet sea level rise for every 1 ppm of methane. Considering how much methane that we've put into the air, we've asked Mother Earth to melt all the polar ice caps and flood us out at 220 feet of sea level rise. That was scary, but I felt pretty safe. I'm setting 600 feet above sea level here in Detroit, and I've tried to raise the alarm about things in the past, and it hasn't gone well, so why try? You know, people aren't going to listen anyway. So, but I was still curious about things and still did some more studying. To prove that glaciers could suddenly collapse and go into the sea, I found articles like this, the unexpected ice loss in the Russian ice cap, and the Arctic ice cap slides into the sea. But that's not what really scared me. This is what really scared me. Okay, this talks about the effectiveness of methane as a global greenhouse gas. And they use 20 years, 100 years to compare methane to CO2. But if you compare it on a 20-year basis, I don't know if you can see this underlined part right here, right there. 20-year means methane is 84 to 87 times as powerful a greenhouse gas than CO2. Using those calculations, the global temperature should rise because of the current 1.85 parts per million CO2, methane in the air. Global temperature should rise over 9 degrees for that by itself. So on August 22nd at 9:30, 2018, I realized that a vast majority of us will not survive the current greenhouse gas transient. Now, in the past, that transient has taken thousands of years. In fact, back on this graph here, you can see the delay time between, the blue line there. If you go down to the bottom, you see the sea level peak, and the CO2 peaked 10,000 years before the sea level peaked. So there was a lot of time involved. But they discovered something that in the East Siberian Arctic shelf, there were between 500 and 5,000 gigatons of methane stored in methane hydrates on the East Siberian Arctic shelf. There's only 5 gigatons of methane in the air now, and that 5 gigatons corresponds to 9 degrees. So if 500, there's between 500 and 5,000 gigatons. So just by this calculation, we could turn the planet into Venus if all this stuff got into the air. And that scared me so bad, I decided to make a call for extraordinary action, that we should do something now. We should not let any of this methane get into the air. We should capture what we can, convert our economies to run on methane, and at the same time, we should burn off the excess just by big flares and stuff. I know that's going to add a lot of CO2 to the air, but the methane going into the air could accelerate climate change by many hundreds of times faster, at least by this. I don't know. I'm not, climate science is a new thing to me. But by these calculations, 100 to 1,000 times quicker. So instead of 10,000 years, you're talking 10 years to major changes. That's scary. So I was told never to bring up a problem that you don't have a solution to. So here's the biggest project of all time. Let's build a bunch of ships to capture methane, convert our economy to methane, and burn off whatever. I mean, let's actually do that. And so I'm here trying to raise $1 trillion. You want to help me raise $1 trillion? Well, the only way that's going to happen is if I get enough money to do some advertisement, and I bring a coalition together, and we've got to start from scratch. So this is scratch. This video is scratch. We are starting from here, and we want to get a team together to present business plans to start companies that will do this stuff. We want to start 3 basically companies. We want to start Scruggs Energy, which will harvest the methane, which will sell it and move it. We want to hire, we want to start the Responsible Consumers Union so that people can get together and invest in these kind of products and make a profit, and they can well, the Consumers Union is way too complicated to explain here, but we want to do like Project Higher Ground, where we will have emergency action um, modular home building where we go into a place that's been wiped out by a storm, and for the foolish insurance companies that want to rebuild there, we will build modular homes and fill in the gaps, but we'll talk to the people and have them move to our higher ground in Detroit or other Rust Belt cities that are sitting vacant for the most part. Um, and you and I can make money by buying Rust Belt and selling it to the refugees. But it's one step at a time. It's one thing at a time, and I gotta find out if anybody cares. If anybody's, will you pass this video on to somebody, and you know, send me $1 or $2, so that I can get started and tell somebody else about it. I did a lot of big things in the past, and nobody cared. I mean, I found a way to remove CO2. Radioactive carbon from the food you eat, and this would prevent cancer. But the problem was that, well, marketing and getting everything going is real complex. And I lost $60,000 of my own money developing RC-free foods. I invented a way to store summer's heat and heat your home in the winter with it. And I developed that on a small scale, and I was trying to raise money to go to a large scale. And there was another company called Practical Solar out there that I called my idea Practical Solar, and there was another Practical Solar out there who got all my phone calls from my advertising. And so basically I went broke with that too. But here we go again. This scared me so bad I have to swing for the fences again. And I am asking for your help. If you care, send me a couple dollars, push like on Facebook, and send this to somebody else. And if it goes viral, then I'll know that we care and we should do something about this. And if it doesn't, I'll get in my fishing kayak, I'll retire, and I'll forget about it. Because, frankly, well, I am worried about it. I was going to say that I'll die before the worst of it, but in reality, my granddaughter, I'm worried about Freya. So, okay, I'll worry quietly if you don't fund me. There we go. Press like or ignore me. It's your choice. Thank you.